Let's return to our top story, the condition of the President Donald Trump, still in hospital, of course, with COVID-19. Joining me live now is Greg Sheridan, foreign editor at The Australian. Greg, thanks very much for your time. It's hard to know the condition, not because neither of us are doctors, but the information from the doctors, I mean, initially saying there'd been no oxygen given, and then that was apparently just a reflection of the President and his team's positive attitude. I mean, how can anything be firmly believed right now coming from the medical team?
Well, Tom, you're absolutely right. The instinct of this White House just not to tell the truth is bewildering. I mean, getting COVID is not a moral disgrace, and receiving oxygen is not an act of corruption. Every other leader who has got COVID has received a wave of public sympathy, which has been broadly helpful politically. Boris Johnson and Jair Bolsonaro of Brazil. But this White House just has an instinct not to tell the truth. And apparently they thought it would make the president look weak if it was revealed that he had received oxygen. It's truly bizarre. The dynamic here is a bit unpredictable, but overall the election is looking very bad for Trump at this moment.
Presumably there was straight away thinking of the tactics of this. I mean, for anyone else, you'd assume they get COVID-19, your first concern is the medical condition, but let's be honest, the election's about to happen. Politics are never far away. There would have been a thought of what happened with Jair Bolsonaro. It was such a mild case. He came out and said, see, it's just a cold. Now, if Donald Trump recovers really well from this virus, ultimately, but has to have serious intervention that we've learned about, steroids, oxygen and so on, it's a bit harder to dismiss it in that way, right?
Well, yes, that's true. I think the best chance for Trump to emerge well out of this is if he comes through physically okay. He can say, see, I'm 74, I'm male, I'm a little bit overweight, and still it didn't knock me around too much. But honestly, this is a kind of meta-rational situation. It's beyond rationality, really. 210,000 odd Americans have already died from the virus. You can't play it down. The other thing is Trump has really striven over the last 4 or 6 weeks to make the election about anything other than COVID. He wants it to be about Joe Biden's quite radical and extreme economic proposals, you know, zero carbon emissions by 2050 and zero emissions from the energy sector by 2035 and big tax increases, all kinds of other things. So Trump wants that to be the subject, or alternatively, law and order. But this guarantees that COVID is the subject. Trump is not responsible for 200,000 deaths, as his opponents allege. On the other hand, no one could say that he has handled COVID well, and his polling numbers on COVID are very bad. So Trump is very dynamic, and alternatively, I suppose, if he has a severe illness, he may get a kind of a heroic wave of sympathy, as Boris Johnson did. But just in the last month or two, the White House hasn't been able to take a trick. And I think lying about his oxygen levels just reinforces the destructive syndrome that they're caught in at the moment.
One of the early polls from Reuters, take this for what it is, obviously, if the President had taken COVID-19 more seriously, he probably would not have been infected. Agree 65, disagree 35% on that. Look, I don't want to pretend one poll decides everything, but I guess the other point about this, when you say let's not make this the issue, there's got to be this trepidation, or perhaps there should be more trepidation about focusing too much on the base, and I'm talking about the motorcade decision. Yes, his base will love this, sticking or thumbing his nose at advice and all these sorts of things. But this is people in this car. Nothing I've read suggests this is anything other than a genuine health risk for the people in the car. It's a hermetically sealed car. Now, that's good for anyone outside. He can't infect the public. But there are people in there with families, with lives to go back to, who'd have to be at some sort of risk, wouldn't they?
Well, I think that's obviously right, Tom. That's absolutely true. Why would you put your Secret Service guys at extra risk? Now, you could see from that film that they're wearing protective gear and they were wearing N95 masks. But the whole point of isolation is that you avoid intimate proximity with people. I mean, the big dividing line for getting the infection is to be within 6 feet of someone who is infected for 15 minutes or more. to be an enclosed space like that does increase the risk. It seems that the super spreader event for this infection of Trump's was the garden party nominating Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court. Now, I think she is a magnificent nomination, and this issue is all upside for Trump. But they had this little garden party and they didn't observe the most elementary social distancing. I mean, would it really have diminished the political impact of this garden party if they'd all been seated 1.5 meters apart from each other, and if the audience generally had been encouraged to wear masks? This just strikes me as completely crackers. And 5 or 7 people who were at that function, including critical people in Trump's administration, have now, tested positive for the virus. Really, I mean, I've tried very hard as an analyst to have a balanced view of Trump. He does some good things and a lot of bad things. He says some courageous things and a lot of crazy things. But this is just very counterproductive, weird, irrational behaviour, which suggests that, Trump's whims are not properly challenged by grown-ups in the White House.
Just going to play you quickly Joe Biden's response. As you say, he's got to be careful not to have a direct criticism of Donald Trump, but he is pinning this back, just riffing off what you're saying there, to mask wearing where it makes sense. He was the Democratic nominee.
I don't want to be attacking the president and the first lady now, because they're now have contracted coronavirus. And Jill and I pray for their quick and full recovery. This is not about freedom. It's about patriotism. You wear a mask to protect the person next to you. You wear a mask to protect the bus driver. You wear a mask to protect the person you're sitting next to on the bus.
And as you were saying, Greg, this just allows Joe Biden to have this as a part of every stump speech, to be careful to never directly criticise Donald Trump, but say, this is what is best for the country. It's not about what you feel like doing. It's about, that common sense approach just on COVID-19 as one issue.
Well, you're absolutely right, Tom. Look, this is beautiful for Joe Biden. I mean, 2 things just strike me about this. And you've got to say this is a wonderful situation for newspaper columnists. That's the only good thing you can say for it. 2 things strike me. One is that if Biden becomes president, as he probably will, he owes it all to the virus. COVID may have been terrible for the planet. It has been very, very good for Joe Biden. He wouldn't have been the Democratic nominee without COVID. He wouldn't have beaten Trump without COVID. And this makes him look energetic and sensible. The second reflection is the first part of that grab that you played, Tom, there again you could see poor old Biden struggling to complete his sentence. He is the most vulnerable frontrunner you could possibly imagine, and a normal campaign would have found out his sort of terrible weakness as a candidate, but he is going to skate through and he's going to look more energetic than Trump. I mean, Trump you can imagine he's pulling his orange hair out by the roots. He's confined to a hospital ward, while poor old Sleepy Joe can do 1 appearance a day. And if he can manage to read his teleprompter or just get out his few sentences about, you should have been wearing masks, well, obviously he looks like the voice of reason and common sense. How on earth it is that the United States, with 330 million people, the richest country in the world and the most powerful nation the world has ever seen in all of human history, could produce a presidential contest between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. If Tom Clancy had made this up, they would have refused to publish it on the grounds of complete implausibility.
I don't think you're alone thinking that. And I get what you say about Joe Biden. There are times where you're almost finishing his sentences for him as he sort of gets halfway through. I'm not going to throw any glasses. There you go. I've stuffed my line. Any stones in my glass house.
And a young bloke like you too,
I guess.
I mean, it's all right for us
Greg
senior
Sheridan.
citizens, but a young bloke like you.